So, one of the things you saw last Sunday was Nigel Farage literally had a massive meltdown over Andrew Marr asking him questions. Yeah, you can't make this up. How can you even stand? This has been Farage's tactic for years, so I'm not even surprised. But this is the argument you give back. How can you stand for public office in a position where you will have power and decision-making process over other people's lives, and then, first of all, not put forward a manifesto, because apparently, according to Farage himself, manifestos are full, quote-unquote, full of lies. Bear in mind, Farage has released several manifestos in the past as a UKIP leader, so can we guess that those manifestos were also full of lies? Here's the thing. Parties need manifestos and should have manifestos. That sets out what a party is going to do. This is how a democratic public can then go, they said they do this in their manifesto. Then they can judge them how well or how well they haven't done when they are in public office. And one of the things that Marr did, and we'll just go through the interview in a bit, was he questioned Farage on his past statements, because that is incredibly important, judging people on what past statements have said. Because if you haven't got a manifesto, then you have every right to question on their past statements, like the fact that Farage wants to privatise the NHS and several other things he said in the past. So yeah, we'll go through this now. So this is from The Independent, looking at it. So Nigel Farage has launched a furious rant at Andrew Marr during a heated appearance on live television, accusing the BBC presenter of conducting the most ridiculous interview ever. Strong words. So why did Farage think this was so ridiculous? The Brexit Party leader reacted with fury after being asked whether he still agreed with a series of controversial statements he had made in the past. That is in his entire right to do that. That is Andrew Marr's right as a journalist. That is a journalist doing their job. Pushed on his previous comments about Vladimir Putin, gun control and immigrants with HIV, Mr. Farage initially tried to defend the claims, but quickly lost his temper at the line of questioning and demanded that he insisted be asked about this month's European parliamentary elections. What for? You've got no manifesto out. What is he meant to question you about? He told Marr during the appearance on the BBC's Andrew Marr show, do you want to discuss these European elections or not? Go on then, let's try. As the presenter continued with his questioning, Farage added, here we are with one of the biggest chances in politics that has ever occurred, and you're not even interested. What's wrong with the BBC? I've been going around the country speaking at packed rallies every night, and did you know who's not there? The BBC. Well, neither is anyone else, by the way. And these packed rallies, they're not they're not even that interesting. You know, we've covered some of these on the channel before about how they are basically nothing but massive puff pieces to appease the troops. There is no policy, there is no discussion about, whoa, this is what we're going to do next. It's all puff pieces. It is, how amazing is, I don't know, it's literally, how amazing are batteries? Aren't batteries amazing? God, don't you wish there were more batteries in the world? Just replace that with, you know, Brexit. God, isn't Brexit amazing? God, didn't we wish we had more Brexit? Isn't Brexit such a good idea? Not discussing why it's a good idea, or the consequences of Brexit, or maybe countering people who say that Brexit isn't a good idea, maybe other than just spouting a slogan like, oh, they're not for democracy. So yeah, Following from this line of question, and now I can see why. You're just not interested, are you? You're just not interested. Let's talk about democracy. Let's talk about trust. Let's talk about competence in politics. This is ludicrous. How can you talk about democracy when, you know, you are the biggest, seem to be at the moment, the biggest anti-proponent of democracy, and yet you don't want people to vote on a confirmatory vote whether they still want Brexit or not? That is something that should be done. There is nothing wrong with that. If people still want Brexit, and Nigel Farage is right, then they will quite simply vote for Brexit again. What is the problem of having a second vote? Unless he thinks he's going to lose. And bear in mind, once again, you had Farage during the referendum making sweeping statements about literally saying how we are going to leave with a deal, that we will not leave with no deal. So Theresa May's deal, he's now calling it a European treaty. By the way, any deal we sign with Europe will be a treaty. I know, I'm sorry, you can't get around that. That's Nigel Farage trying to, well, use Nazi propaganda to try and stoke up people's anger at the situation. Anyway, he continued, "This is absolutely ludicrous. I've never in my life seen a more ludicrous interview than this." Why is it ludicrous? What is the problem with a journalist asking whether or not you, an elected politician, still stands by statements that you want to privatise the NHS? Why is it ludicrous to try and nail Nigel Farage down on when he says he wants a smaller government? What does that mean? When he just says more freedom for what? What does that mean? You know, we've already got in this form of government cutting constantly to being, you know, the smallest government potentially has been in decades because of the amount of cuts that it has forced on people. And look at where we are now. People having to rely on food banks, literally going hungry. You know, this is not a good situation. And yet Nigel Farage wants to do more of that. I have to guess that that's what he wants because he won't clarify his position. So asking these questions is important. This is what journalism is. And there's a lot of people out there who support Farage who think this is ludicrous, when it is not. This is journalism. This is apparently what the people on Farage's side and the Brexit side have been complaining. Oh, you're not doing proper journalism. And yet here you have a case of someone who's doing proper journalism, and yet they're now not happy that they're doing proper journalism. How dare you ask me questions on my past statements and whether or not I support them? You know, that is a perfectly valid question to ask. You are not prepared to talk about what is going on in this country today. The BBC are. The BBC have done numerous reports about what is going on in this country, reporting the news. Nigel Farage is the one that is not happy to talk about what is going on in this country. You're in denial. The BBC is in denial. The Tory and Labour parties are in denial. Referring to the European elections later this month, which polls suggest his party is on course to win, Mr. Farage added, "I think that you're all in for a big surprise on Thursday week than you can ever imagine." Well, we don't know yet. Part of the reason, someone asked, I'll have to try and dig out the article. I read it while I was away and I forgot to send it to myself. But someone asked, why is Farage leading in the polls? The main reason Farage is leading the polls is because a lot of former UKIPers and current incumbent MEPs have switched to his party. The pollsters are banking on the last election on what the results that they got. Now, this could be entirely different because what we are looking at potentially is the biggest upswing in people registering to vote for these elections. So this could be very interesting. Now, I don't think they're going to be fully stopped from getting in, but needless to say, I don't think Farage is going to have the easiest rides that he potentially thinks he might have. The former UKIP leader was also asked about a series of previous claims, including that he wanted to abolish the NHS, admired Vladimir Putin's leadership style, and believed that worrying about global warming was the stupidest thing in human history. So, you've got him basically trying to destroy one of the core, most progressive systems we have in this country that saves lives and saves money. He wants to get rid of that and go to a private healthcare system, which, if you've seen in America, and bear in mind you have people at the moment which cannot afford to feed their families, what do you think is going to happen when you suddenly go, okay, you now have to pay for your medical expenses? That is going to destroy the working class, the group of people who Farage says he wants to help and support the most. But every single word and action he takes, he does not support that. And then you've got him supporting Vladimir Putin, a strongman who arrests his political enemies. And then global warming. Global warming is a serious issue that we must make in our lifetime, that we must be careful to take care of and make sure that we do something about it. Because if not, we're going to have even more problems. And there could be very potential of not reversing those problems. And that is going to cause huge problems. So Marr also pressed him on suggestions that he wanted to roll back gun controls in the UK and was uncomfortable with foreign languages being spoken on trains and thought that immigrants with HIV should be allowed into the UK. These are perfect statements that Farage has made, because how do we know that Farage isn't going to go, oh yeah, sure, you can have guns? We have a problem with knife crime in the UK. Do you think that suddenly allowing guns back on the street in very easily accessible quantities is going to be a good idea? No, it's not at all. I like the UK gun laws as they are. You know, there are little to no guns available on the streets, and trying to get a hold of a gun is incredibly hard, which is as it should be. We have little to no gun violence in this country, and that is a good thing. And then, uncomfortable with foreign languages being spoken on a train. I'm sorry, but that's just absolutely racist. What makes you so uncomfortable about hearing someone speak a foreign language? You know, who cares? And then immigrants with HIV should not be allowed into the UK. So after Farage had defended his previous comments, he turned his guns on the presenter, saying, what is the relevance of this? What is the relevance of any of it? You haven't put out a manifesto. So what do people think that they're going to get when they vote for you? Because you're basically asking the public to give you a blank check to do what you want. You haven't asked a single other member of the Brexit Party, have you? You haven't commented on the fact that we've got the most diverse list of candidates in any party fighting this election. Oh, and some of his candidates. Oh, Jesus Christ. Go watch the new Kevin Logan episode, Let Them Eat Cake, the special, where they look at some of those candidates and the stances and things that they have said in the past. It is terrifying. It really is. Anyway, he continues. That's worth discussing, isn't it? How have we managed to get left and right together? You haven't really, but there you go. These are things that are really interesting to your viewers, not trolling back through a series of quotes from years ago. No, they have every right to go after you for those quotes that you've said, because you could be you are standing for election for a public office. You should absolutely be grilled over those comments, and you should have to defend the fact that you want to get rid of the NHS. So to anyone in Farage's voting area, or if you live in Farage's area, then you should absolutely ask him, why does he want to get rid of the NHS? Why does he think that a private system is better than the one we have at the moment? And ask him, what about poor people? What do they do? He could be seen shaking his head angrily as the interview finished. Mr Farage launched the Brexit Party last month after quitting UKIP in protest and its direction under the current leader, Gerard Batten. He told Marr that this new party would never publish a manifesto, saying it was a discredited word. Why is a manifesto a discredited word? Parties should have manifesto, or how do you know what you're voting for? How can you hold someone who is a politician to account or judge how they've done, or a party based on what they've done, if they haven't said, this is what we're going to do when we're in office? He said, I will never use the word manifesto again. Manifesto to me has a word association with lie, because that's what we've had at election after election. Policy platforms, but no manifestos from the Brexit Party. It's bad. It's a discredited word. That's basically him saying, yeah, we don't want to put anything down that people can screw us down to. If they said, we're going to do this in our manifesto, and they don't do it, then people can't really judge them on it, whereas they can just say, oh, we tried. And then they can make up some excuse, like, oh, whatever. It's so ridiculous. So ridiculous. He also defended a controversial poster used by UKIP in 2016, showing a queue of immigrants under the caption "Breaking Point," but admitted that his current party would not have released it. So basically, he's admitting that yes, UKIP, the current party for absolutely crazy racists, was fine to release that poster, but now that he wants to try and get some veneer of respectability, he doesn't want to release that poster again. He said, we're in different circumstances. As the years go by, decades evolve, different issues come to the fore. Through that period of time, there is no question that was the number one issue in British politics, was about immigration. Immigration was an issue, but it's because people like you made it an issue and lied to people to say that it was an issue, when immigration, time and again, has been shown in numerous papers. Even Theresa May did five government white papers on the impact of immigration that all said immigration has a positive effect on the UK and that the negative effects were little to none. And here's the thing. If you said, oh, but there were negative comments of immigration, then why did the government not try to do policies that would mitigate those negative effects? People's concerns about open borders and the impact on wages and access to public healthcare. None of those were an issue. None of those were an issue at all. We did not have open borders. People are checked through passport control, coming in, coming out. We know exactly who is coming to the country. We know who is going out through the country. That is how it works. You've also got the picture of impact on wages. Minimum wage. If you are seriously saying that wages have been impacted, then why is minimum wage a thing? Now, I agree minimum wage should go up. I think everyone should have that pay rise. I think the goal to rise minimum wage is a very good one. And it should be good, because if more people have more money to spend, then they can go out and spend that money, which gets the economy moving. You know, that's economics 101. I think it was Farage. I can't remember if it might have been one of the other people in the Brexit Party. I can't remember what is it. Is it the chairman? Can't remember his name now. But yeah, he said he wants to get rid of minimum wage in the past, so that's another comment he should be taken care of. And access to public health care. The reason why we don't have access to public health care is not because of the EU or number of immigrants, it's because of the lack of funding. You know, that's the simple one. None of those issues would really, well, apart from open borders, because it's part of an immigration topic anyway, but wages, public health care, those were tied to the Tory government, our government, not the EU. Had nothing to do with it. The number one issue in politics now is democracy. The failure of our political parties to keep their promises. This is what the country is debating. If democracy is what you want, then why not go for another vote? If you are so sure that this is apparently what people want, do it. But I always say this to people. If we end up in a no-deal Brexit, and things will go down the shitter, and they will, trust me, things are about to get a whole lot worse. And I've always said, enjoy these last couple of months under, while we are in the EU, because things are going to get worse, and they are not going to get better for the foreseeable future. These are things that we are going to have to live with for decades to come. And the people who make your life worse were people like Nigel Farage, who campaigned to leave the European Union, saying that somehow it would make your life better. That's who you need to blame. You can blame Theresa May if you want, but the real people to blame are the hard Brexiteers and the people pushing at the moment for a WTO Brexit. So asked whether the Brexit Party would have released the poster, he said that it would not, because it was not the burning issue of the time. So ridiculous. But instead, he did not regret doing so because it was, quote, the truth and had transformed European politics. That poster was not the truth. We are not part of the European Refugee Treaty, which means that we would have had people from Syria coming into this country. That never happened. That was not the truth. Nigel Farage is an MEP. He should know that, but he's lied. And this is the part of the problem with Farage, is that he tells a half-truth and then doesn't tell you the rest so that you get the full information. This guy is a master when it comes to telling half-truths and half-lies and then spinning that to his advantage. That poster was a complete lie, and it shows the racist dog whistle that Nigel Farage employed. Because ask yourself this question. Someone from Syria comes, let's say to Germany, because they're in that agreement, to become a German citizen. They've got to spend at least 8 years, get a job, and learn German. After that 8 years, why then are they suddenly going to move? And remember, they've got the full rights of a German citizen now. Why then are they going to pick up sticks after 8 years of a job, a life, a home, possibly a family, to just randomly move to the UK? Why is someone's ethnic origin an issue? Because that's the real problem you've got to pick out. If you can't accept that guy has been in Germany for 8 years, has a family, and then decides he wants to move to the UK, let him. It's no problem. If he comes and gets a job, contributes, yeah, why not? But if you're saying he can't come because he's Syrian, that's where you have a problem. And that, my friend, you might have a racist bone that you might have to try and pick through in your brain. Because, I'm sorry, we're more worried about the race element than you are about the immigration issue.